This podcast is a 98 Studios production.
Today's the day, baby.
Today's the day.
Today's the day.
Today's the motherfucking day.
Today is the day.
Today's the day.
Today is the day.
Today's the day.
What up, everybody? Welcome back to Today's the Day with Zack Andersen. Today we have basically my older brother, Mr. Stephen Andersen. Yeah, my older brother, Stephen. It's going to be a good episode. I'm excited because there's going to be a lot of retelling stories I've heard and getting more details. And then I know plenty about Stephen. So if he goes quiet, I can go expose you. But no, thank you for being here, Barry. I appreciate it. I'm super stoked. I think a lot of people are going to be excited to kind of break down exactly what it is you've done for so long and then also what you do, because I think there's a lot of question marks around it. We just had Corey Sistrunk on quite a few episodes back, but he was similar. Like a lot of people were like, dude, I know Corey, but what does he do? Like, yeah. I know he's responsible for a lot of really cool things, but what exactly does he do? Yeah. And you're very similar. I think some of your experiences have been experiences that people that are listening don't even know you cultivated and created, that they were part of. They have no clue. Everyone at Vivint, almost every one of the favorite events you've been to, Stephen put it together. Stephen did everything, and multiple other companies. ION. What other companies are on the ballots?
Kin,
ION, Vivint. Anything done by supply, anything within any of the multiple regions, you've gone and done. So yeah. Branding experience is all you. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Excited to be here.
So we're going to dive into what it is you do eventually. But before we get there, diving deep into your story, upbringing, all the good stuff from out the gates. Where are you from? What was family life growing up? What was that like? And then how did you end up becoming who you are doing what you do?
Yeah. Starting with just childhood.
Early as you can remember.
Man,
Take us way back.
Born in Salt Lake and grew up actually pretty traditional, not anything too crazy. Two amazing parents, very stable home, 4 kids. Not a lot of story there, to be honest with you.
How many siblings?
4.
4 siblings. Yeah. You are where in there?
I'm the third boy.
So
3 boys and a baby girl.
She's younger than you.
Yep. She's my everything too. I was closest with her growing up.
Your little sister.
Yep.
That's awesome. Grew up in Salt Lake, or where'd you grow up?
Born in Salt Lake, raised in Centerville until I was about 10 years old. And actually on my 10th birthday, found out that my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma cancer. And so it was that day that we found out, what it was going to look like. They had given her about 6 to 7 months to beat this thing. If she was going to beat it, this was her plan and everything. And she chose to not go through chemo. She said, if this is my path and this is my outcome, I'm going to enjoy this last part with you guys. Mm. So my dad chose to move us to Logan in preparation to raise us by himself. It was a young family at that time. My mom was 35. Mm-hmm. And so they were moving us to Logan. My dad was changing his entire career, the company that he built, everything for our family. And that was a huge moment for me and for the family, just to see the love my dad had for my mom and the family. He put everything aside to make sure that we were taken care of. And ultimately, my mother is a faith-driven individual. The church is first in all things. And it always has been that way. From my grandparents to my mom, my parents, they've instilled that in everyone. It is faith first and everything else later. So she said, it's going to come down to, like, I'm going to have the best doctor perform the best surgery, and I'll put the hands in the Lord. And that's where it went.
Crazy.
So they did a 16-hour surgery on her face. They removed her nose. They pulled out all the glands in her face. They actually cut the flap of skin on her face and removed that off and stripped everything underneath it. And they went as invasive as possible. Lymph nodes, everything, anywhere that cancer could grow, they removed. And then she spent a long time rebuilding that cartilage from her ear and other places to rebuild her nose. I mean, it's a phenomenal job. You've seen my mother now. Mm-hmm. And unless you tell that story, it's hard to even understand what she went through.
Yeah, that's insane.
And so going through that process and watching her be so strong and just like, I'm going to fight this thing and I'm going to do it my way. And I'm not going to be miserable. I'm not taking chemicals. I'm not trusting any of that. If this is my path, then that is the path that I'll go on. And had it completely removed and never saw it again the rest of our lives.
Holy shit. And when you're 10, did you even understand that decision?
No.
Did they even like, obviously you knew.
I thought my mother was dying. When I came up, there's one memory that I have. I came back from playing with my friends. And again, it had just been my birthday. The mothers in the neighborhood threw this party for me because my mom was in surgery. I came up the stairs to see her for the first time, and I looked at her, and it was not my mother. I remember vividly looking at her, bursting into tears, and I ran out of the room. It almost scared me because here was half a face gone.
Mm-hmm.
And this person that I had no idea what was going on.
That's so
I just
crazy.
knew that like I was most likely losing my mother, and my friends, everyone like is getting turned upside down, and we're moving to Logan.
How do they even break that to you when you're told you have 6 or 7 months to live? How do you go break that to a 10-year-old and all the other kids? Like, what did they say?
It was my dad who sat me down with my brothers and sisters, and he just kind of broke down and told us very real, this is what's happening to mom, and we're going to fight it. And we're going to give it the best shot. She's going to be okay. It was always positive all the time. And I remember my mom, she just had such an unwavering amount of faith. It's amazing to see. Like, she just always believed that it was going to be okay.
After the surgery, I'm assuming after the surgery, then you guys still didn't know if everything was like, if it was going to come back, if it was successful.
With a melanoma and a cancer like that and a skin cancer, the deadliest thing is when it metastasizes. And that's what they're trying to prevent. It's not deadly if they can catch it early enough to where it hasn't grown throughout the body. When it becomes very deadly is when it metastasizes, essentially meaning it has hit your lymphatic system and it is spreading throughout the body. And that's when they have a really hard time shutting it down. And that's why most people go through chemo, because chemo takes you as close to death, I believe. I'm not, in the medical field, but as it can, it kills everything in there so that the cancer doesn't have a chance to grow. Yeah. And so without doing that, we truly didn't know where she was going to be. It was touch and go for 5 years post that surgery, to where she was going in every 3 months, and then it got to every 6 months. And I remember she had this phenomenal doctor who gave her zero to little hope. And every single time he would tell her, he's like, you're not there yet. He wouldn't high five her. He wouldn't congratulate her. Because like, you're not there yet. He basically told her it could come back at any moment. And if melanoma comes back, the rate of survival drastically increases to where there's pretty much no chance.
Drastically decreases. Why is that?
I don't know, to be honest with you, but that's just what I was told.
That's crazy. So then touch and go for the next few years, was that always like every time she went in for an appointment, heart drops? You're like, holy crap.
And all of us kids were under like scrutiny, like couldn't go in the sun, couldn't do, like, we had to go get checked as well.
Yeah.
And everything. I still to this day go in like every 6 months getting checked. But that was that
is crazy. That's super tough. And that says a ton about your mom and your dad. That's really, really cool. So then they're moving forward. You get into junior high. That means junior high time is when you transfer to a brand new school. Yeah. Brand new friends.
Yep. It was actually like elementary school. I was about 10
years old.
I don't.
6th grade?
Yeah.
Maybe. And then what was that like? Going and swapping schools, that's like a massive disruptor. Like you say, there's not many stories, and it's like but standard upbringing. It's not standard at all.
One thing about me is I actually love change. I love the challenge and the ability, like meeting new people is awesome for me. And it's actually fun and exciting. So I was sad to leave my friends behind that I had created and had those experiences, but there was this exciting part. Like, I'm the new kid. I get to go and meet new people and fit in. And the challenge that brings has always been fun. Cool. I actually enjoy going into those situations.
Which is way more of a mature view on it, for sure. I think most kids, it's like the sky is falling when they...
For sure. I know my brother really struggled because he was switching during high school.
That'd be tough. So then moving on, did you enjoy your experience through junior high, high school? Like, what were you like through junior high and high school?
Oh, I loved it.
Let's hear about
I
it.
loved junior high. I loved high school. I'm as social as can be. I love having lots of friends. I was the type of individual. I like to know that I didn't have one group of friends. I obviously had close friends, but I was friends with as many people as possible because I just love learning from different individuals. And that's one thing that I think, fast forward to now, I credit a lot of the success to, is being able to learn from multiple different people. Like, everyone has those people that they get along with, but there's so much to learn from everyone. And that's where I really found a passion, is getting to know and connecting with a wide variety of people. So throughout high school, I was obsessed with sports. I loved soccer. I was never good at football. I loved it, but I was terrible at it. But soccer was the thing I was probably most passionate about. Again, I wasn't the most naturally talented athlete in high school. I was always pretty small. I could never put muscle on and anything like that. So soccer, naturally, I loved it. But it was a challenge for me. I had made the freshman team, and then I got cut sophomore year. And that was really hard for me because that was kind of where I had put most of my focus. I mean, growing up, I played baseball. My dad was the baseball coach, and I was still on the bench, even with my dad being the coach. Like, I just wasn't the star athlete, but I loved it. And so I learned to work at it to be where I needed to be. So getting cut sophomore year was hard, but I didn't let that part of it stop me. I went to the coach and I said, look, I might not be able to have a spot on the team, but I'm still going to be here every day. What do you have for me? I still want to be here. He's like, well, we need a manager on the team. Would you be interested in doing that? And I was like, I would love that. And he's like, really? Like, you'd be like cleaning up after setting up? And I was like, no, I'll do it. Can I wear cleats to practice? Can I be there with the guys? Can I do the drills? It's like, yeah, I don't care as long as you do that role. And it's like, great. And I actually found a lot of joy in it. And it helped me to focus on making and not getting cut my junior year. And then I came back to being captain of the team my senior year. So going from being okay to being the captain my senior year was something that I truly worked really hard to be.
That's super dope. We have a lot of similarities. I was a team manager too. I couldn't quite make the team, but they let me be the golf manager my senior year. That's awesome. So then when you're in high school, I'm curious too, because every time we have people on here, everyone's lives end up in such crazy cool places, and people do the coolest things and people create the coolest things. And I love to understand where they were at when they were getting into that transition from being a total dependent child, which is all through high school, junior high, to what they do now. And that transition's super weird. So I have a question for you. The question being, when you're in high school, you're finishing up, you're captain of the soccer team, what's your life plan in that moment? In that moment, you probably had a life plan or an idea of where you thought your life was going to go. What was that?
Yeah, from the moment I was a little kid, I had always wanted to be a doctor. I was obsessed with the body and how it works, and I had always wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. Another story from childhood, I was in Yellowstone National Park on a snowmobile with my mother, and I was hit by another snowmobile right in the thigh. The nose of the snowmobile hit me there, and it snapped my femur in half. And from that moment, I had always been obsessed in how the body heals itself and what a doctor was able to do for me, because there was a couple different paths that I could have taken. But when that snapped my femur at that age, the doctor came in and he's like, you will most likely never run again. It'll be tough. You'll walk with a limp. This leg will be shorter than the other leg. And so from a young age, I kind of dealt with okay, I'm going to have this. And I just didn't agree with it. I was like, no, there's no reason for that. Do your job, the best job. What's the best procedure to give me the same length leg? And they're like, well, we would need to put an external fixator on. So what they did was they put a big bar on the outside and a cage, and they screwed long pins into here. Actually, Abby's dad did this. And it held my bone a little bit further apart, but in place to allow it to grow.
What the crap?
It was really cool.
That's crazy.
The only caveat to that was I had to wait a year in a bed. I could not put pressure or anything on my leg. And I was in the 4th grade. So there was nothing. I couldn't go to school. I laid in a bed with my leg healing before I could put any pressure on it.
What did you do?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know how I got through that. My friends came over. I had amazing friends that would come and hang out with me. But it was like my 4th grade year was spent in a bed.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So then from that point on, that's when you became obsessed, fixated. You want to be a doctor.
Yep.
That got your head in that space. Senior year of high school, you still had the same mindset of like, oh, I'm going to be a doctor for sure.
Yeah.
What was like your next step life plans? Mission, doctor?
Yeah.
Like,
For me, it was high school. I was a very enthusiastic individual. I was excited for a mission. I wanted to go serve. I wanted to do that. I had a whole plan, like mission, marriage, all of it. I was checking off boxes left and right. I was a straight A student. I graduated, I think it was like a 3.9. I loved school. I loved excelling at school. Learning is fun for me. I kind of liked that nerdy side of it, but I also loved the sports side of it. So there was like a really good balance there. But yeah, that was like, I was literally like a pretty normal, good kid. Didn't get into a lot of trouble. Didn't do anything that I shouldn't do. Like, I just wanted to check the boxes, be a doctor, be married, have the family, go on the mission, like all of it. I was like, just.
So the reason I asked that, and I know the answer to it, and the reason I ask it, and the reason it's so cool and fascinating is because I don't think if we gave you 1,000 guesses senior year that like, hey, where are you going to be at this point in life, that you'd guess that you've done what you've done or that you'd be where you'd be. I don't think there's a million.
I couldn't even, there's no way I could tell you that this is where I would end up.
So the reason I ask, and the reason I think that's so cool is because so many people think they have their whole life like planned out in front of them when they're a senior in high school or when they're a junior in high school or when they're in college. They think they have everything figured out and that like this path is success. And the reason I think it's valuable to realize that path is probably not going to happen exactly how you think is because then you don't go get down in these slumps when you think you're failing because you're not doing things at the timeline you should be doing it or whatever it may be, if that makes sense. So I think it's really, really cool because I also don't think you would change where you're at right now for what you were thinking you wanted your life to be.
No, not at all.
Which is super, super cool. I love that. So then plan was mission. Did you go straight to a mission after high school or how was that? How'd that work?
Due to age, I had a year in between because we weren't allowed to go on missions till 19. I would have gone right after. So I did a year of college at Utah State. But yeah, that was always the plan. It was just my waiting to go on the mission.
Utah State, straight to your mission. You served where?
The Czech Republic to Prague.
Which you loved.
Absolutely loved.
I've heard this story, or I've heard all the stories a million times about how much you love it, how many times you've been back and everything like that. But like,
I
give
did.
me the rundown.
I truly loved, like there was an excitement for me. I had never, my family didn't travel too much. I think we went out of the country one time growing up, which was fine. We were very close. We St. George was our vacation. We would go to Bear Lake. We'd go to St. George. We were a very close family, but we didn't travel a lot. We went to Puerto Vallarta one time for New Year's. And so for me, this was exciting. I'm going to Europe. And, you know, there was a little bit of pride. Like, I don't know if you know much about, you know, the culture behind missions, but, you know, I felt prideful to be a European missionary. And I know that sounds bad. And for no reason are we better than any other missions, but to go to Europe, I was like, this is awesome. I got a good mission. Like I was stoked. So from the moment I read that on my call, there was an excitement, like a happiness about this.
Yeah.
And I truly loved every day. Again, it goes back into, I love change and new experiences. I love new people. I love new challenges. So for me, this was everything that I wanted. Going to the MTC, learning a new language, a difficult language, meeting new people, interacting, and then going out on this 2-year adventure of not having a clue what it's going to be like. and specifically to the Czech Republic. We are going into a country that was under communistic rule for 40 years. And now I'm going to tell them that a boy in New York has the one true path for them, and that this is how they need to come to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And these people are like, yeah, no, I'm not falling into that. Like, this is an atheistic, free living group of individuals, and they want nothing to do after 40 years of being suppressed to, you can't do anything. This is what you get. Here's your house. Here's your job. Here's your car. They were told every part of their life, this is your career. Nothing was up for them to choose. It was really tough to get them to buy into the idea that this church in America is the right, true church for them.
And it should govern how you live your life. And
Exactly.
the rules you live by. Yeah.
And then to say, oh, you can't have sex. You can't drink alcohol. You can't have tattoos. That's too many piercings. Like, it was very constricting, saying like, whoa, what is this? So that was a really unique challenge going into there, and I loved it. And my mission was everything to me. I loved every day. I don't know that there was a day that I was like, I wish I wasn't here. I wanted to stay. Like, ask my mom, like, she didn't know if I was coming home. Like, she's like, do you even miss us?
Yeah.
And I was like, to be honest with you, like, I just love it here.
Yeah.
And it was that, like, I loved talking with people every day. I was excited, like, out the door to meet new people, to go and talk to them and practice the language and see, like, how connected can you get with another individual? And that's what a mission's all about. Like, if you can connect with another individual and help them see and better their life through this platform, it was really, really awesome. But again, it was tough. We entered the mission field. I had a brand new mission president. He went through the MTC with me. Phenomenal human. And I know everyone says that about their mission president, but like, truly loved my mission president. And he was big time business guy, came from entrepreneurial world into the mission field. And he carried those same ideals into the mission. Our mission was so strict. We were a rule following. There wasn't one missionary that was sent home from my mission. We just didn't disobey. And a lot of that was because of him and what he allowed us to do. He came into the mission, and before him, the mission president was awesome before him. But he was like, you do the work, you do it this way, and that's the result we get. Whether you baptize or not, we're a good mission, and we can feel good at the end of our mission that, you know, we came and did what we were supposed to do here, whether we baptize or not. And my mission president had a different idea about that. He's like, no, if we're not baptizing and we're not bringing people to the church, we're not doing our job.
Yeah.
So let's not do what was done in the past. And this was one of his first zone conferences. And it was awesome for me to see. It pissed a lot of the older missionaries off, but everyone had this photo hanging in their apartment in our missions. And I have the photo now that I've gone and found, but it's a black and white photo of a workhorse. You know, those like big horses that pull the carriages. It has its head down, it's hooked up to the wagon, and it's plowing. It's a hard working horse. That was the mantra of the mission, is put your blinders on and go to work, go do the job. And my mission president stood up there and literally like tore this picture in half and said, this is not who we are. This might have worked in the past, but we do not put our blinders on and put our heads down. He's like, look at this photo. This is someone hooked up to a wagon with their head down, moving in a straight line. That's not what I want you to be. Elders and sisters, lift your heads up and be eagles. Soar to whatever height you want to soar to. Go wherever you want to go. Do whatever you want to do to accomplish the job. No longer are we hooked to a wagon with our head down and blinders on. Go be free and soar to whatever height you want. He's like, you are the mission president in your area. Come to me with how you think this should be done. And he listened, and he like allowed us to do what we needed to do to make the mission a success. And he brought in those ideas of what he did in his business to be successful into the mission field. And I could go on and on about everything that he did, but that stuck with me. And still to this day, I use that same principle of, not doing something that was done in the past just to do it. Like there is a different way to approach everything you do. And it just has to be, authentic to yourself. If you go do something that you're passionate about, you'll be a lot more successful. And that's what he allowed all of us to find. Like, go to your area and find what makes you passionate and be successful at it.
That's so sick. That's honestly, that's probably way more impactful than he would have guessed, or you would have guessed in the moment too. Like thinking back and looking on it and how you do what you do now, like you embody that in almost everything that you do. And you're a big spokesperson for that same ideology.
Well, I think that's what started my paradigm shift.
That's what I'm saying.
Because where I am today.
Yep.
The person I was coming out of high school that you were talking about that was checking the boxes, I'm going to do this. Then my mind started saying, oh, I don't have to do that.
And that was the perfect person to say that to, because when you're in that mode, the only person that has that much influence over you would be a mission president.
Yeah.
If anyone, like that is like that's someone you'll go take advice from. So that's so cool.
And I have that photo hanging with me. Well, it's the picture of the horse because it reminds me not to ever be that.
Yeah.
So whenever I go into something, just because it was done a certain way, I'm going to do it my way or the way that works best.
Yep.
And it was really cool to see the success of the mission. When I entered our first year, a mission of 88 missionaries, there were 8 baptisms in a 2-country mission. So you've got 88 missionaries knocking every day, 365 days a year. There were 8 baptisms.
That's tough.
At the end of his first year, we had 27 baptisms. At the end of his second year, we had 96 baptisms. And when he finished his third year, had well over 120 plus. I mean, I had already gone home at that time. But
that's crazy.
What he did in that mission and the success of it wasn't just, hey, we're here to do the job and to do it. No, he allowed people to be themselves and to find a passion in the work, but a passion created by them. They weren't there to do somebody else's bidding. They weren't there to just go by like.
So why do you think I'm curious then on that. Why do you think that worked so well?
I think anytime you can allow a person to feel like they're a part of something and that they have buy-in, and to invoke a passion inside of them that makes them say, I can do this and I can do it my way. And I'm not doing this because somebody told me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You find a very unique path to success.
Because they own it.
Yes. And I've carried that same thing. And I think you've seen that in my friends and the people I'm around, allowing people to have that buy-in and a platform to go and create is where I learned that from.
Mm-hmm.
I loved leadership in the mission. I was a trainer for 3 straight months, and training in the mission field is exhausting. You have the language barrier. So you're teaching this new missionary how to do the language, how to do the mission, and then how to get into the routine. And I did it 3 times back to back to back. It was exhausting, but what I learned in that is something I've carried throughout my entire life, that ability to allow someone to come in and learn something new, but make it their own and to be successful at it. I am here as a mentor to this individual to teach them, here's your tools. Now, how would you use them?
Mm-hmm.
How should we go about this? And I know what way works, but what was so fun is taking these new missionaries and allowing them to plan the day, to go out and say, okay, we're going to do this today. And I'd say, why? And they would tell me, well, this is what I think would be successful. I'm like, great, let's go try it. And it was never my way or this is how you have to do something. I would bring these new missionaries in and say, how do you think we should do this? And then we learned from each other what's the best method to go talk to an atheistic individual about a church in the United States and see their perspective, because it all goes back to every single person that you interact with has value to bring to a conversation. You should never, ever diminish someone's ability to create, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I've carried that same idea through all of my career. Whenever I've worked with an individual, allowing them to say, like, I know what works best for me, but that might not be the best way to get from A to Z, because this individual has a different approach and that might be more effective. And so allowing other individuals in and then finding a common ground and working together was a much more successful path than I had ever imagined. And I had a blast with it.
Yeah,
and so those were parts of my mission of why I loved it.
Yeah, that's so rad. I've never even actually heard that, but it makes perfect sense. And like exactly what you said, that was the moment you probably started opening your mind up a little bit to what life could turn into, rather than being so, you took your blinders off in every sense of it. That's really freaking cool. So then coming off the mission, I've heard mixed responses when you're coming back from your mission where you're fully like engulfed in this. Like, was it anticipation, fear? Like, did you have a plan still, but you were kind of open-minded? What was your plan? You're on your flight home from the Czech Republic and you're like, okay, this is what's going to go down. Or was it like, oh, I'm so excited to be home. And then you're just thinking about the next day or what?
Yeah. So I had a really unique group of friends. There were 17 of us, I think, that left my high school that went on missions all at the same time. Pretty much. We were all on missions at the same time. We all came home a few months, obviously, apart from each other. So we were all excited to get back. And then there was this little industry that had just started popping up called door-to-door sales. So as we started coming home, there were individuals in our neighborhood that we all grew up with. The Doug Robinsons, Casey Baws, are just now starting to recruit. And so we're all coming home off our missions. And it's like, hey, there's this new opportunity. Everybody's doing it. So there was this excitement to get home to try this new door-to-door sales. And that's instantly what everyone transitioned into from my friend group. Every single one. It was like you come home and then you're going in to door-to-door sales.
That's wild.
To pay for college. Because back then it was a true summer sales job. And we would all go to college and then you would do summer sales to pay for it. So my whole idea coming home was I'm doing summer sales to pay for medical school.
Yep.
So I trust all of these friends. Casey Baugh is a name in the neighborhood that we've all grown up with. It's a trusted family, like Doug Robbins. All of these guys are like, this is a safe place to go earn this money. And that was what we came home and did.
That's so wild. So you came fresh off the mission. At what point, what was the company at that point that they were
Apex.
at? Was it Apex still?
Yep. Atlas had just fallen.
Yep.
We came home in 2009. And so it had just turned to this Apex pinnacle battle.
Yep.
Of
exactly.
alarm sales in the 2009 era.
The glory days, dude.
Yes,
that's crazy.
The wild, wild west of door-to-door sales.
And then you did, what was that experience? So now you're talking very, very, you're speaking the language of a lot of the listeners, right? Like a lot of listeners in door-to-door, and a lot of people that we've had on or in door-to-door and everything like that. What was that experience? You're going from the mission to summer sales to get you through medical school. But in the moment, in the summer sales experience, what was that like?
Yeah. And I came in very confident. I was a good missionary, a successful missionary. I came into it saying, I'm going to pick this right up. This is going to be no problem. And I got absolutely rocked. I was not good at it. I had a hard time staying on task. I found myself sitting in the cemetery trying to bypass time. I did not allow myself that first year to it was hard. It was not like the mission at all. It was terrible. And I had to really, really work at it to stay in there. Mm-hmm. And I did do, 4 years on the doors.
Why do you think it was so hard that first year?
I think because I thought it was going to be easy and that I'd be good at it. And then not being good at it, it mentally just took me out of it. And I don't think I could pick it back up mentally. Like it knocked me in a place I had never been ever in my life. Yeah. Mentally, I lost all of my confidence. I didn't think I could do it. I would go on the doors scared. And I had never, ever faced that in my life. I had always been, like I had described, excited to talk to people and to learn from them. And I just did a mission and all this. And now I have people slamming a door in my face, mad at me, calling the cops on me, yelling at me. And I'm like, I don't know how to operate here. So
then why the hell go back a second year? Because that what you just described is so close to a lot of people's first years, a lot of people's, mine included. Like, And very few people ever go back, or they blame it on the team or the manager or the area or the company or whatever. And they go make excuses, and that turns into a habit as well. Few people go stick it out and go crank 4 years doing something that's that tough.
Well, a lot of it was the individuals that were there. These are all of my friends. If they can do it, I can do it. I'll figure it out.
Did some of your friends find success off RIP? And they were crushing.
Absolutely crushing. And
which probably made it even harder for you then.
Really hard. Yeah. Because like, why can't I do this? Why can't I pick this up?
It makes you question your existence.
It does.
Often.
It rocked me. Like every emotion on this, I was like, you have your good days and then you just feel absolutely terrible. And that's why I loved summer sales and that experience, because I learned so much about who I am. But I truly don't think I ever mastered door-to-door sales. What I found in that, though, was an ability to help others find that skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started creating better practices, like doing things to distract myself from the doors.
Yeah.
I found a passion for creating slides, for doing all these, like all of this stuff, which I had always loved to create, but now I found
somewhere to apply it.
Yes.
Yeah. That's so freaking cool. So then throughout the 4 years, was your plan still, okay, you're still going to school, medical school, right?
Mm-hmm.
4 years. And then when did your plan change? How did it change? And like, what was that 4 years like? Was it as miserable as year one, all 4 years?
No,
or was it like, oh, it got better.
No,
I got to the point where I could go make decent money in 4 months.
I was making great money. I paid for my college because from the moment I was 18, I love my parents. And they've taught me amazing things, but I was on my own. I had to pay for college.
Mm-hmm.
We were not financially set, and I would never ask my parents to pay for my college, to pay for my cars, to do this. They were always there for me, and they would help me if I needed help, but it was up to me to go do it. So I had to go provide for this, and I had to go have money to go to medical school. That was my whole plan.
Yep.
But in answer to your question, when did it shift? It was the moment my engagement failed. That was when my life came to a halt and I had no idea what I was going to do.
Mm.
And in that moment, when I'm 10 days from the altar and I had to call it off, and I'm now a failure, and I'm a person who wasn't able to do something in front of everyone because invites are out, everything's out there. And now I've called my engagement off. I don't want to be a doctor anymore. I'm sitting there going, I don't have a single clue what my next step is.
Was that the first point in your life that you felt that way?
100%.
Where it was like totally blank canvas. Like, and in the moment probably wasn't looked at like, oh, it's a blank canvas. Like, it's more of like, what the fuck am I going to do?
Exactly. And I sat there and I was like, I know I don't want to be a doctor. I just spent the last 10 or so years of my life focused on doing this one thing. And I was so excited about that I had those blinders on. I was hooked up to that wagon, and that's what I was pulling. And now there's no more wagon.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what to do, but I know that's not my path.
So what do you do in that moment? How long did that moment last? Was that weeks, months, days of like, what
no,
the hell?
It was months because we had a house. It felt like I got divorced. Like truly it did.
Mm-hmm.
And that girl was amazing. Don't get me wrong. We just were not compatible. We were not right for each other. And so we had to go our separate ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard. And that was the first time I felt true failure. I wasn't succeeding at summer sales. I don't want to be a doctor. And now I've just failed at an engagement. I felt like a complete and utter failure and disappointment to my parents, to my friends. Like it was really hard.
Mm. So then what did you do to get out of that? I
actually remember one time I got a text message that was not supposed to go to me. And it was someone who I thought was a friend. And they had said, it can't do sales. And now he can't even commit to like a marriage.
I can't do that either.
Yeah. And it was just like, oh, so all of that was like weighing on me, and just, it was tough.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to figure out where to go from there is when I was like, I'm going to finish school and I'm going to go figure it out. And I decided to move down to Provo. And that was when I started teaching myself the creative stuff. I started learning Adobe. I started getting into that world and providing value anywhere that I could and saying yes to anyone that would give me an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And that was how I got my foot in the door with Casey, with that whole world, with Doug Robinson, and just providing any value I could. You need a slide deck, great, I'll build that for you. I had no idea how to build it, but I figured it out.
Yeah.
And I learned at a young age, there was little to nothing that I couldn't figure out. So I was saying yes to everything. I remember one time at Vivint, I was asked to build the training manual because I said yes, that I knew how to use an Adobe product that I did not know how to use. And so the entire training manual was put on me to build and format and put together. And it took me months to do it. And I was delaying it, but I learned how to do it and figured it out. And it was things like that, just taking any project that I could and making it look better and producing a result.
That's amazing. So then you did 4 years. What year was it that your engagement failed?
That was like year 2.
Year 2. So then you did 2 more summers of sales.
Just kind of wandering, trying to find
getting
out.
through school, basically.
Yep.
Like just getting through school, doing what you were used to doing, probably more autopilot than anything. And then when did you go pivot and get really deliberate, or did you kind of fall into what you got into after that?
No, when that happened, I kind of thought to myself, I need to figure out who I am. And that was when I started living. That was when I said, okay, I'm going to go do things for me, because for the last 23 years of my life, I have followed the examples of those around me and what I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until that failed engagement and going through all of this that I said, okay, I'm done trying that approach. I'm going to go and live. I'm going to go do what I want to do just because I want to do it, just to experience. And that was where that word truly came into my life of like, I want to go experience. I want to see what this life has to offer. And that was when I got addicted to traveling and going in and seeing new cultures. And I was obsessed with.
That could have gone such a different way right there. And that was when I got addicted to. That could have been a curveball.
No,
right there.
never been that. But I truly was addicted to traveling and experiencing cultures and people and understanding. Yeah.
You still are, for sure.
Oh yeah.
So was that feeling like overwhelmingly like exciting and like freeing? Was it a little bit freaky and scary? Like what was it
scary,
like going
for sure.
into it?
It was freeing in the aspect that I didn't have any obligations. I didn't feel like I had any pressure to be something, because all the way up until that point, I felt like I had to be a doctor just because that's what a good job was. And then I had to be a good student. I had to be like all these things that were leading me up to being something for someone else.
Yeah. Like the identity that you thought would be like good enough.
Yep.
That's
and
cool.
Growing up in this culture, it is very against the norm to not get married at a young age. And so going out and spending 10 years of my life traveling and experiencing, I spent the years from 25 to 35 having the best time of my life.
That's so awesome. I love that. So then as you're deciding to do that, how do you go stumble into, or how do you deliberately jump into way more of the creative stuff, creating experiences for people? Like, I mean, I guess I should put this in perspective because I know you're going to be humble about it. There are a few thousand people that listen to the podcast. And of the few thousand people listening to the podcast, 90% of you have been to an event that you are completely responsible for, a trip that you are completely responsible for. 95% of you have worn something that he's responsible for designing. Like I'm telling you, tens of thousands of people have gone and experienced the experiences that you learned to go and showcase, which is like, I think your specialty. I think experiential design is what you do best.
It is. Yep.
And that encompasses everything. Like experiences everything from the second you put on a certain knocking polo to you on the incentive trip to you at an award ceremony. And you've thrown events with thousands of people where everything's riding on what you plan to go well, which is really, really freaking stressful, to be honest with you. I do an event
But
with
to me,
200 people.
it's not stressful. To me, that is an energy like unlike anything else. I love being able to take something and create an amazing experience out of it that you didn't anticipate coming into, and you leave feeling better because of it. That gives me an energy and an excitement to go and create and to push myself every single time I'm involved in an event or anything, whether it's a competition or receiving swag or going to this event or simply just coming and picking up your uniform.
Mm-hmm.
What is that experience and how can I make you feel special?
Mm-hmm.
Because that is where I found a true passion, is when I can do something for someone else and make them smile. It internally makes me happy and gratified and fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent a lot of time figuring out how to get really good at the details of what makes it different, because anyone can throw an event, anyone can build swag, but it's the little details that I learned separated me from what was going on
Mm-hmm.
in that world, in experiential design.
Mm-hmm.
It was going the extra mile to put yourself in the shoes of the client to say, how do they experience it?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it was just spent in my mind, walking through every single aspect of it before even getting close to bringing things to life, saying, I want it to be a certain way because this is how I would like to be treated.
Mm.
If I can make someone else feel like that, I think it'll be a win.
100%.
And so I would go through every stage of it in my mind and innovate on, this is how I would like to be treated. Because as you know, Delta is a huge part. There's a reason why I like that Delta status and everything like that. It makes you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
They make you feel better. The higher up you get in Delta, the better you get treated.
The experience, the more money you spend on Delta, the better your experience is with Delta. And I think, you are a big advocate. I'm going to hit Diamond this year.
Well, that's amazing.
Did you see that picture?
Yeah, I did.
I'm going to do it. You're going to be proud of me. You're going to be proud of me. So then that is exactly why you're so good at it. And I love the way that you look at it. And I think it's the best way to look at it, because I think too many people skim, and honestly, it's some people's personality. My personality is kind of in between you and who I'm explaining, but there are people that like skim over the details, like, oh, that stuff doesn't matter, like this is what matters.
Yep.
When in fact, I think there's a combination of both. And that is what makes things so special. So then when did you get to the point where it became like a actual viable option to go, and at the end of the day, you have to make a livelihood?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, creative is sick, and there's a lot of creatives out there, but at the end of the day, you have to find a way to make money with the creative genius in you, or you're going to be doing it as a side hobby for the rest of your life, which is honestly not a bad thing either, because if it's a certain type of whatever, you probably want to keep it as like a fun hobby, not as an occupation, because it can kind of suck the life out of it in some ways. So when did you go land like a job in creative, or what was the path that got you to where you ended up at Vivint? And then we'll talk about your first round there and then where you're at now. Like,
yeah, it all goes back to like, it was a side thing for many years, and I would do anything creative that I could, but it never was an actual job for a long time. I was starting out as assistant, and I would take any job that I could do just to provide value,
mm-hmm.
just to get my foot in the door, to say like, hey, what do you need? I'll go do, like, how can I help? And there was an individual that I was partnered with who taught me a lot about program management and that whole world. And I learned that and I loved it. And so I would kind of mold into a role and get really good at it, and then find out how I can make it creative and add that part. And it was just like little step by little step that we transitioned into being full-time in the creative world.
Mm-hmm.
So it really didn't happen at once. It was just by taking little bits and little bits while doing other parts of different jobs.
Mm-hmm. And then at what point did it become your full-time job? Like you were in charge of, and what was that role back in the day at Vivint?
Back in the day, I was specifically in charge of actually communication. That was my main role. I was always on the side helping with creative and doing what I could, but my main role was communication and culture, and just keeping that idea and pushing things forward. Because where I excel is execution. And so I was very useful in bringing things to life. And so on a creative team, I could take, I've worked with creative geniuses. I think Kevin Swiss is a creative genius. I was able to work alongside him and learn from his genius and bring it to life.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one thing in early stages of Vivint, and working with individuals like him and Damon, that I was able to showcase a skill set of executing
Mm-hmm.
and creating that value there. So that was really where it started,
Mm-hmm.
and bringing video sets to life, photo sets to life, anything like that, to say, here's my vision, Stephen, can you create this?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say, yes, yeah, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was where it all started.
And you found energy in that. Like, was that fulfilling for you? How many years was that you were in that role?
Oh, that was 4 years, 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
Right. And I was there for all those years too. Like, that was when you and Damon were just cranking through everything. I was up at your guys' office hanging out. That was when I was starting to build teams, and starting in the space. Actually, I interviewed to be on your guys' team before my first summer, and I got turned down. That's why I did summer sales. So I guess I can thank you guys for that. But 4 years, was that fulfilling? Was that like everything you hoped it to be? Did you have a plan, or were you just kind of going with it?
I loved every part of it. It was truly like, I found joy in all those little details that most people don't. I enjoyed those challenges and doing that work. It was very
like
fulfilling.
having an impossible task and getting it done.
Yep.
100%.
I loved the task of like, can you do this? And saying, yes, I can pull that off.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that. Which
is awesome. And then you had a good little stint there, and then it ended kind of abruptly and not the prettiest way. Like, it was just not the greatest thing. What was that experience?
That was, again, another defining moment in my life. That was probably the hardest thing up until that point, other than calling off the engagement and having to tell her that we're not getting married.
Mm-hmm.
That was the next pivotal moment, because I felt really good up until that point. Again, everything was good. I was in a good job. Everything was comfortable. My whole life was Vivint. And then it was ripped out from under me all within a day. I had no idea it was coming, and then I had nothing. And that was a tough realization that allowed me to see I needed to reset and start over again.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really hard.
Yeah.
Because my whole life was built into that one specific, like, as you'd say, like, all of my eggs were in that basket.
It's like your identity.
It
like
was.
It's how you identify.
It truly was.
It
was my family. It was my everything. Because I was on my own down here in Utah County. Like, that career and those people.
Me and Corey lived with you. Come on.
I know.
Me and Corey.
And that's why I have people like you and Corey, because you are my family down here, and you have been very close. That was so difficult, having to fail again.
Mm-hmm.
And having to have that humiliation. And I won't go into the details of that day, but it was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going to Mendez's house and just sobbing.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff literally just saying, he's like, hey, it's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't worry. I know it's hard right now, but it will get better.
Mm-hmm.
And that was where I started on this path of truly creating. And Casey, Kevin, Santiago, and Jeff gave me the opportunity to come inside the restaurant group,
mm-hmm.
and to really start creating how I wanted to create. And that was when I tore Station 22 apart,
mm-hmm.
and built it how I wanted to build it. I said, I love design. I'm going to go do this. And that's where I convinced all of my friends to come work late hours. And Corey was vinyling a wall. He's never learned how to vinyl. Drew's tiling and YouTubing on one hand and trying to figure out how to keep tile straight on this hand. But we built the restaurant, and I just started that. And it was a 5-year journey of any creative project I would just take and start doing.
Which was cool. So there was a gap of time there where after Vivint, you kind of took a gap where you were fully in the restaurant game. Like,
yep.
building out, redesigning, getting these restaurants up, getting
and very passionate about it.
And not even just the design. Again, it just goes back to experience. You were over everything. You made sure the menu was how it was. You made sure service was how it was.
It was all the details. Because if you look at a restaurant, there's so many things that go into that experiential design that affect, like the moment you walk in the door, what are you smelling? What are you seeing? How are you being greeted? How long till you get seated at a table? What is brought to the table? That entire thing, and why I love restaurants so much, is the whole thing is an experience.
Yeah. 100%.
And that's where Kevin Santiago is amazing. He has that vision and is so passionate about it. It was really fun to work alongside him and to get to create and bring his vision to life.
Big Kev. We got to get him on here.
You do.
I love Kev. So then you have that, and then you get back into the door-to-door game with a company where you're not knocking again, but you're over creative for Kim.
Yep.
Right. Shout out Austin Elkins, all those guys.
Yeah.
Big
Austin,
love for Austin. I love Austin.
They had talked to me for about a year, and they had been asking like, hey, we've got this company. And I had known Austin. He's a phenomenal salesman from Vivint, one of our top salesmen. He's a good individual. And he had said, hey, I've got this thing, come do it. And I had said, no, I don't want to get back into this. I was very hurt, if you will, from the past experience. I was like, no, I'm on my own. I'm doing really good. I had the Lake Powell thing going. I had the restaurants. I had a bunch of side clients. I was in a really good spot. And Austin's like, man, just come help us do our social. I said, okay, I'll do that. So I was just running social for him. And then that went for a few months. And long story short, we ended up going in-house. And at the time, they were Icon Energy. And I hated the name. It didn't make sense. And then we got this cease and desist from a company in Arizona.
God sent.
Yes.
You were stoked about it.
I had been telling Austin for months, we got to change the name. Austin was like, no, it's good. We've built this brand. Let's not touch it. And then this wonderful letter came in the mail that said, you can't be Icon anymore. I said, yes. So we went to the drawing board. I talked to Corey Sistrunk, a phenomenal brand, as you know, culture brand. I said, hey, I need some help. We need to make an outstanding brand. So we worked with his team, and, Keegan is phenomenal, and built something truly, like, I'm very proud of the Kin brand and the Kin name and the culture that we built there.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of work, and Austin allowed us the space to go and create something really amazing. And they have a strong brand to this day.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really fun. That was probably like one of my favorite creative projects, was turning that around and then turning it into what it is. And then allowing Corey the space to truly, I think that was his first time of having that mantle to go and
freedom to go do his thing.
Go and create. And that was where he truly started to shine in that space. He was obviously talented before and had the skill set, but he started shining there at Kin and truly like getting into that video world.
Yep. And then you got a really cool opportunity where you got to go and work with ION, one of the giants, one of the bigger companies. And I think at this time you also had all your side clients. You were running, we didn't even talked about Lake Powell, but running all of these other things you were doing. And then I assume this is the same time period where you went and formulated Supply, which was your guys' business that you guys have that does freelance creative work and everything like that.
Yeah, we had so much. Corey had a bunch of video clients. I had a bunch of design and different, as you know, I get a lot of different requests to host events. I think when October rolls around, it's always really hard because I want to say yes to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And for so many years, I did. I just said yes and I would do it. And I didn't care about the money. I would go do it for little to nothing, most of the time for free, just for the experience to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And Corey said, Stephen, you've got to start charging for that. We could do something here. So that was when we formed Supply, and it's been going really well. We love it. And it's been so fun to work with him and to have a strong business partner who's so talented, who I absolutely adore. I mean, he's just, he's like
one of the best people ever. He's one of the best people on the planet.
So that experience in itself has been phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. So then you're there, you're doing your thing, you're at ION, and then
ION was really tough. I loved Matt, Dave, and Jeremy.
Mm-hmm.
They are phenomenal individuals. They run a different business model than I had ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Culture is is tough to quantify. It's tough to see your ROI with culture, and it's hard to build. And over there, they run a very strict business that is built purely off numbers. And so to them, creative never really took a front seat in anything. And we were like one of the first true creative teams that they'd ever hired in-house and focused on it. And it was good, and we did a lot of good there, but it was hard every step of the way.
Yeah, just different ways of doing things for sure. Which honestly led into where you're sitting now, which is a really, really cool position, probably like a dream position for a very long time.
Yeah.
Now, where are you at? What are you doing?
Coming back to Vivint, I got approached by Todd and Josh to come back to Vivint to run Sales Experience. And that has been one of my absolute crowning moment and favorite returns. Like coming back into that world has been so amazing and fun and relieving. It has been like I had never left, and we've picked right up, and it's a challenge. It's a different company than I left 5 years ago. And so there's a lot of new challenges with it, but it's exciting. It's fun, and there's a lot of good excitement. And as you know, Josh is a phenomenal human with a great vision, and now I get to work alongside him and bring that to life.
Yeah, Josh is awesome. That's so cool. So now you're still doing everything you're doing. You got supply running. What's your title at Vivint now?
Senior Director of Sales Experience.
There you go. That's a long one. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
I love that. And then sitting here, like, what do you hope to go and do with it? Like, what's your game plan with it, with supply and with everything else?
Well, the game plan is we've got to tell an effective story. I think with any culture, if you aren't able to effectively storytell, then you're nowhere. And that's what we're focusing on right now, is being able to effectively tell the story the right way, the effective way. And that's a challenge. It's tough to do. And we're figuring out what is the right way to tell this story.
100%. I love that. Dude, honestly, I looked at the clock and we're already over an hour. I'm sorry for everybody. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So a couple questions to kind of wrap it up. And again, thank you for being here. So I'll be quick. But my question for you is, I love your story, and I think I went so in depth on your story because there were so many moments where it was not even a pivot. It was almost like the floor fell out from under you.
Yep.
Right. In a sense. And you call them failures, but I'd beg to differ, because I think where you're at's really, really cool. And I don't think you get there. Maybe failure is the right word. I don't know. But you had those moments, and I think a lot of people have those moments, and those moments are defining moments, whether you want them to be or not. And they're not defining moments because of what happened. They're a defining moment because of how you respond.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How you react or respond. My question is, what advice do you have for someone where it feels like the sky is falling and the floor just fell out from beneath them, and they're on nothing they thought they were supposed to be doing, are they doing well, and they're in a massive failure? Like, what's your advice in that moment for someone?
I think too often people, there's two parts to that. I think this is going to make me sound old, but kids these days are rushing to be something. And I think everyone just needs to slow down and enjoy the moment and just take what's happening in and not take anything for granted, and just go and be the best version of yourself that day. Do the best job you can be a good person, and just slow down and accept it for what it is, and just take advantage of any opportunity you can to be your authentic self and to do a good job. I think too many times people put too much pressure on themselves of they want to be something, and they see all this stuff on social media and all these kids that are making millions of dollars here or here doing content or whatever it is. Just slow down and be the best version of you. And it's going to be okay, and it's going to work out in the end. There's too many times that I talk with individuals and they're like, I'm not where I want to be. And I'm like, well, you're 23 years old and you've got a whole life ahead of you. Go experience life and find out what that is that you need to be. Because what you want to be now is not what you're going to want to be when you're 30 or 35 or 40.
Yep.
Like, slow down and appreciate everything that's happening and truly just enjoy life.
I love that. That already answers my second question. So I'm not even going to ask it. That's a perfect answer. The second question has to do with today being the day and seizing the moment and living in it. So that's a perfect answer.
I think that's a wonderful ideal. And I've watched you grow this and that idea. Even before this podcast was a thing, you used that slogan. I mean, I think we've texted those 3 words to each other hundreds of times.
Oh yeah.
That idea is so powerful, of seizing each day, because that's what I love so much about being a creative, is that I don't know what my day is going to look like every single day. And I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love going into it knowing there's going to be fires and I'm going to be able to handle it, and it's okay. And if I don't handle it today, I'll get it taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to understand, like, today is the day.
Mm-hmm.
And seizing that moment every day and finding opportunities to be happy and grateful for where I'm at is so powerful.
I love it. Well, Stephen, dude, you're the freaking man. Again, thank you for the hour. I know how busy you are. You literally just got back from a trip. You are still addicted to travel.
It's a problem.
Thank you for being here. And everybody watching, thank you guys. Until next time, much love. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. As always, it was a blast for me. I hope you got something out of this. If you got something out of this video of value, share this with a friend, and please go show your love. We're on all streaming platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Any ratings, comments, likes, shares, they go a very long way, and they make it so I can keep doing these things for you, and I would appreciate it greatly. So please go share with a friend. Until next time.